Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last webinar about Ecuador. And today I am going to talk to you about the fourth world. If you remember at the beginning of these webinars, I was telling you that in Ecuador we always speak about four worlds. So we have already gone through the Galapagos, the Pacific coast, the Andes, and today we are visiting the Amazonas and the cloud forest. Please let us know if you have any question. Finally, at the last webinar, I have remembered to let you know that we have a special box for the questions. So let me know. So let me go through these images to show you how beautiful the Amazonas region is in Ecuador. Okay, so first of all, let me show you where we are located. The Amazonas Basin in Ecuador, we are sharing with our neighbors in Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Brazil. Of course, everything is part of the same thing. So the main features or the main difference why we differentiate between the cloud forest and the Amazonia, this is very important, basically because the cloud forest is a different environment that is a transition zone between the western range of the Andes towards the Pacific coast or between the eastern range of the Andes towards the Amazon basin. All the clouds and all the humidity that is transported by the wind from the sea to the Andes or from the jungle to the Andes is trapped in the mountains due to the winds and the currents, and that is what creates this cloud forest environment, which is a very humid area and a buffer zone to the large forests of the Pacific lowlands and the Amazon basin. So what is the best time of the year to go to any of these two zones? Basically is all year round. So rain is going to be there almost every day of the year, regardless of whether you are in the wet season or the pouring down season, which are the two main seasons in these regions because it is always raining. So the cloud forest is a little bit higher in altitude. It is located between nearly 5,000 feet or less above sea level, and the Amazonas region much lower. So the average temperature is between 75 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Is very humid, and it is a very good place to breathe pure oxygen, to fill your lungs with a lot of pure air. It is very good for you to find out what the ancient primary forests of the Andes, I mean of the cloud forest and the Amazonas region look like, to have beautiful encounters with lots of fauna. So this is basically for nature lovers, people who can manage to walk in muddy and rocky terrains. Some of them can be moderate. It doesn't have to be strenuous and completely difficult all the time. So it is a good opportunity to meet nature and to see a lot of beautiful species of animals. So let's begin with the cloud forest and talk to you, and let me introduce you to Mr. Tiger, Mr. Toucan, Mr. Frog, Mr. Weasel, and Mr. Parrot, and Mr. and Mrs. Butterfly. These are some of the locals that live in the cloud forest. They are native animals from this part of the from this environment, which is also part of a diverse bioregion called El Chocó. I had already mentioned this region in another webinar when we spoke about the Andes and the coast, because it is a huge area that goes from the south of Colombia to the north of Peru, and it is one of the most biodiverse regions in the world according to scientists. So here in the Ecuadorian portion of the bioregion, we can find over 1,000 different species of orchids, over 200 species of hummingbirds, lots of water, lots of different trees and different plants and different birds. So bird watching is a must. We do have a lot of hardcore bird watchers who come and ask us to arrange trips for them in this area, because you can find endemic species, lots of tangaras, lots of varieties of toucans, which are appreciated by hardcore bird watchers, as I call them. So the cloud forest is located towards the west of the Andes. To start with a trip to this area, we begin in Quito, and because all the hotels and all the most important visitor sites in the northern part of the cloud forest are easily reached from Quito. We can also visit cloud forest south near Cuenca, or even southern in the Andes. But due to the facilities and the itineraries that we designed for you, we have concentrated in the part that is in the northwestern side of the country. So we can visit in a full day some of the smaller private reserves that are within a 1 or 2 hour drive from the city. And there you can definitely go hiking in the forest. You can do some bird watching. There are special farms which have put some feeders for hummingbirds, so you can just sit down in the porch and enjoy lots of different species of hummingbirds coming to you. Or you can visit coffee farms, or even some archaeological sites which were very difficult to find and nobody knew they existed, but it was during a construction of a private house that they found some of these remainings, these fossils, and even some baths, some pools where they collected the water, where the Incas used to have a bath. And this civilization was part of a group of people who traded a lot of products between the Andes and the coast. So they had to go across this forest, and they built magnificent roads underneath the forest to protect themselves from the sun and from the rain. So many of these attractions can be done in one day. However, if you decide to stay longer, which we do encourage you to do, we suggest you plan for at least a 3-night stay at the beautiful Mashpi Lodge. You might have heard about it. It has been nominated as one of the best lodges by National Geographic, and it is located at a 3.5-hour drive from Quito. We cannot take your guests there when it's already dark, and they have a strict schedule to get in and to get out, because the last 45 minutes of the road is pretty bumpy, pretty muddy. You are right into the cloud forest. So it is best to do it with daylight and to avoid the time of the day when rain is most likely to happen, which will be in the afternoon. So we normally have these questions by most of you. Why can not our guests just stay in Mashpi and then take their flights back home the next morning, or just arrive from the Galapagos and drive straight to Mashpi? It is because of the timings. So please trust us, and it will not be a safe drive for your guests, so that is why we suggest not to do it. You can also reach Mashpi by helicopter if someone chooses not to drive, but still there will be strict times to arrive and to depart, so we will let you know according to the plans that you have. So Mashpi Lodge it's a beautiful place with comfortable suites and rooms. They have connecting rooms too. All of them, they do have curtains, but you don't even need them, because they will only be birds coming to your neighbors next door are only the birds. There's a lot of activities to do in Mashpi Lodge. They have the dragonfly, they have the sky bike. By the way, Abercrombie and Ken always includes the cost of the dragonfly in your accommodation prices. And all the itineraries are planned in a very personal way by the expedition leaders. So depending on your interest, on your fitness, on your will to walk or not walk, that can be planned every day, and you talk to them. They are always arranging very small parties of no more than 5 people. So it's easy to plan what you want to do. There's always activities in the morning, in the night. You can bird watching before sunrise. You can go in night walks, or you can enjoy the spa like this little kid here. They have a wonderful spa with a jacuzzi. They have a resident biologist who can also deliver some lectures. With Abercrombie and Kent, we have arranged for them to allow us, especially when you have children, to visit the biology area where the biologists work on all their researches they do in this private forest. So this is an advantage that we have for your guests. The food is delicious, and it is worth to stay there, as I say, at least 3 nights. To get there by helicopter or by car, a common question that we get is, shall we just book the transfer through Mashpee, or shall we do it with A&K? So the difference, besides the price, because of course our transfer might be a little bit higher in price, the difference is that on a private transfer with A&K, there will be no other guests but you. You will be going with a guide, a tour guide, where on the shared transfer, normally it's young guys who are trying to obtain more experience, so they are not actually guiding or giving information throughout the trip. With Abercrombie and Kent, we will stop and do a visit to the middle of the world on the way to Mashpee, and then as many photo stops as you need. And on the way back, we can arrange for you to have lunch at a beautiful coffee farm. So that will complete the experience of the day in and the day out. And this will not feel just as mere driving days, which is what happens if you just have a shared transfer with other guests from the lodge. Okay, so let us move now to another of the beautiful forests in Ecuador, and let us speak about the Amazonia. This is a picture, I love this experience, is a salt lake for all these parrots who come to feed here every morning. You can visit that, and it requires a lot of patience, and it's beautiful to see how all the birds come little by little. They start checking that there are no predators around, and they will come and spend a lot of time there just feeding and taking a bath and sharing and talking to their friends, which is something we miss right now. These are again some of the locals: Mr. Sloth, Mrs. Otter, Mr. Monkey, Mr. Puma, Mr. Cayman. The difference between the fauna in the Amazonas and the Galapagos, which is another very common question from our guests. So we would strongly suggest that you plan for an Amazonas experience before the Galapagos. And the reason is very simple. When you go to the Galapagos Islands, you do see a lot of individual but less species of animals. And people kind of get used to seeing, flock of birds and lots of sea lions and lots of tortoises and lots of iguanas. And then when they come to the Amazonas, perhaps they will see one caiman, one sloth, one otter. So they will feel that they are not seeing anything. But if you count the number of species that you see in each region, there will actually be more species in the rainforest than in the Galapagos. So this is kind of a psychological trick that we use. So in order to avoid um, people to be less enthusiastic about the Amazonas. So plan for your Amazonas experience first before the Galapagos Islands. So how do you get to the Amazonas from Quito? First, you have to take a flight, and this image here to the left, to the bottom right, is the new and remodeled airport of Coca. So this flight from Quito to Coca takes 35 minutes. You fly above the mountains, above the clouds. It's a very cloudy flight compared to other flights in the country where you actually see the mountains. Here is mostly clouds. So once you arrive in the airport of Coca, you take a van that will take you to the river dock, where you board the canoes that take you to the actual lodges. So this is the Rio Coca. And before you board all these canoes, as you see, they all have roofs. They will provide you with rain jackets. Actually, that is me with my children and a lot of other visitors. We were going to La Selva Lodge. So you are given a box lunch. All the canoes, they have covers to protect you from the rain or from the splashes from the river. And Off you go in these overboard motor canoes that can take up to 20 or 25 people. The luggage is taken in the same canoes, but is all covered with the very safe plastics to protect them from the rain. And the ride takes approximately 2 hours. Once you get to to the the main area where any of the lodges that we use are located, you will be transferred to a small dugout canoe, and then you will reach some of the beautiful lakes where many of these lodges like La Selva, Napa Wildlife Center, Napa Cultural Center, or Sacha Lodge are located. The best lodges that are in the Yasuni National Park or close by the Yasuni National Park are these four ones that I have mentioned, and this is the ones that we suggest for your guests. So as you see, they are all located by lagoons, so these big motor canoes cannot access the shallow streams that take you to the canoe. So that is why you have to switch to a motor canoe, I mean a dugout and a paddle canoe where only 3 people can fit with the guy or the native guide that will be paddling for you. That second part of the trip takes no more than 30 minutes, and that will be definitely your very first encounter with the jungle, because no sounds of motors, no sound of anything except the birds, the water dripping from the trees to the streams. Very peaceful, very quiet. And if you really feel like something is transforming, not only in the environment but within you, because you as all of a sudden forget about the noises of cars, airplanes, and motors, and you go inside this very silent environment. La Selva Lodge, Napa Wildlife Center are some of the most of the lodges that we use the most. Both are located in lagoons. Both have suites and rooms, family suites, excellent food. And the difference is perhaps we like to talk about the management difference because the Napa Wildlife Center belongs to the Quechua community. So it is actually the Quechua people who work there and manage the lodge. The other lodges are managed from different people, owners from the city perhaps, but the way in which they work, all the lodges are pretty similar. So they do also personal excursions with small parties to visit the lakes and the surrounding areas in dugout canoes. The Napa Wildlife has most of the cabins very close to the border, whereas La Selva Lodge have the cabins a little bit backward, so you will be overlooking the forest rather than the lake. Another very beautiful place is Sacha Lodge. I stayed there in September when they were just going through a huge remodelation. They are transforming completely the restaurant, and they were building new suites, family suites, which were very spacious, very comfortable, and all these suites are in the back part of the lodge, so very silent and surrounded by forests. The Sacha Lodge really impressed me with the operational schedules that they have. They are very efficient with that. And so that's another place we recommend. Sacha Lodge is the one that has the largest capacity of all, that can host groups, perhaps incentives of less people, like 40, 50 people can fit there, which is uh, the other lodges don't have that large capacity. And finally, we have the Napa Cultural Center, also belonging to the Quechua community, but this one is more focused on culture and is managed. The cultural component of this lodge is managed by the women. So when you stay here, you will actually be staying a little bit closer to civilization. This one does not overlook a lake, but more the river, and you will be sharing a lot of time with in the indigenous communities. You go to school, you go to meet the organization of women, you meet the midwives of the community. So it is more focused in culture rather than wildlife. So some of the activities that you can do while you are looking in the staying in the Amazon is definitely bird watching. This canopy walk belongs to Sacha Lodge, and it is perfect place for bird watcher. You can spend there as much time as you want, and with all those binoculars, the guides are really experts to see and to find and to spot birds from the top. So you can stay there like 2 or 3 hours, as much as you want. If you're a bird lover, then that's the perfect place. You can do night excursions. That frog is a picture I took when I was in Sánchez. I love this night excursion because you go with a little torch that and then the guide points out it seems that the forest is sleeping in the night, but not at all. It's very alive and lots of creatures, lots of frogs. The presence of frogs, if you didn't know that, the presence of frogs means that the forest is quite healthy. When a forest is attacked or is being, the environment is being changed, frogs are the very first species to be exterminated or to disappear. So as long as you find frogs, that means the environment is safe, and you can find lots of frogs in this part of the Amazonas. You can just go to on dugout canoes and observe the birds, observe the caimans. You actually wear rubber boots. The lodges provide you with rubber boots and rain ponchos to walk through the jungle, which is also another very good activity that we do. You have to bring your binoculars, repellent, and the guys will always bring with you some snacks, because the excursions can take maybe 3 or 4 hours, but they are not because long because you're walking 3 hours. It's because you stop a lot to take pictures, to listen to the explanations, and there will always be two guys with a small party. So there will be the native guide, who is an inhabitant of any of the cultures living in the Amazonas, and then the naturalist bilingual guide speaking English and Spanish, and sometimes they can also communicate in the Quechua language with the native guides. Or you can just decide to maybe enjoy some of the food, visiting the communities you see. Those are my two sons. When we went there to La Selva Lodge about 2 years ago, they are enjoying a lunch that was offered to us by the women in the community. So that meal is called oh. It's sort of a tamal, but you have fish and mandioc and plantain all wrapped in this banana leaf, and they are steamed cook. So it was a delicious lunch. I can tell you, one of the best food I've ever had in the jungle. And then we tried, hunting with the blowpipe, which is pretty difficult. Or you can go upstairs to the observation towers, which are built around these very old and tall trees in the Amazonas. You have lots of stairs to climb up there. The guys will bring the telescopes, and you can spend there also as much time as you want. And when you come down and then you start walking back to the lodge, you may find a snake, just like me. So if you are brave enough, then you can catch the snake with your own hands, and then have a wonderful picture for marketing purposes. So thank you very much for joining me in this trip to the Amazonas. This is one of my very favorite parts of Ecuador. When I started working in tourism, it was because of the Amazonas. I used to lead groups to this part of the world, and I just fell in love with the silence, with the water, with the peace, with the jolly people and their laughs. So the Amazonas is always in my heart, and I really recommend that you allow some time to visit any of the 4 worlds that exist in Ecuador to complete the Galapagos experience. Do not focus so much in Galapagos. Ecuador, as you have seen, has a lot more to offer. Thank you for joining us in all this in this travel around my country, and now I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Margarita. So we have a question, but I think you already answered. Do clients have to bring rubber boots to the Amazon or the cloud forest? You said they provide those rubber boots,
Yes.
but do all the properties provide the rubber boots? Would you ask the size beforehand?
Yeah, all the properties provide the rubber boots. If someone has a very big feet, or there's a very tall person, in Latin Americans, we are not as tall as you are in the United States. So if someone has a very large shoe size, then perhaps we will ask you to bring their own. But normally they do have a few pairs. And also for children, if they are very, very small children, perhaps it will be a little bit easier if you brought your own. But all the properties provide you with, even Mashpi Lodge, they provide you with the rubber boots and the rain ponchos.
Excellent. Margarita, can you please talk a little bit more about the logistics to combine the Galapagos with Mashpi Lodge or the Amazon, as you have to overnight in Quito for a night in order to take the flight or the drive? Can you tell us a little bit more how that works?
Yeah. So if we plan with an itinerary with these regions, I would suggest you spend, as you arrive from the international destination, spend 1 night or 2 nights in Quito. Then we can fly to the Amazonas. You can drive, and there are other areas where you can actually drive and see the jungle, but that will not be primary forest. So that is why we have concentrated our portfolio of hotels in this place where you only uh, where you need to fly and then take this 2-hour canoe. So you go there and spend at least 4 nights. That will be the recommended time by me. 4 nights in the jungle. On the fifth day, you take the canoe, you ride for 2 hours down to Coca, take the 35-minute flight to Quito, and spend the night in Quito. On the following day, you may fly to the Galapagos Islands and stay there as long as you have planned for in the cruise or on a land-based program. A minimum of 4 nights is recommendable, and then fly back to Quito. Spend 1 night in Quito and then drive to Mashpi um, on the following day. In between, we will plan for other activities for you. Like the afternoon, when you come back from the jungle, you can do a half-day city tour, or you can go and have a delicious sundowner dinner at Villa Celia in Quito. Or in the morning that you go to Mashpi, if you go in the private transfer with Abercrombie and Ken, then you will take a visit. You will have a visit to the middle of the world or to the Tulipe archaeological ruins. So it will not feel just like flying, driving, flying, driving. We will definitely plan for other activities to include in your trip.
Excellent, Margarita. So always we have to put a night in between in order to connect because of the early flights or early drives that
Yeah,
we have.
unfortunately, the schedules of the flights going from Quito to Galapagos or from Quito to the Amazonas are not able to be connected. I mean, connections are not possible. But and also you have to know that in Galapagos, flights can only be arriving in the morning because the airport is not suitable for evening flights. And in the for flights to the Amazonas, again, due to the cloud conditions and the weather conditions and visibility, it's easier to fly in the morning. So there are no afternoon flights to the Amazonas or from the Amazonas to Quito. That is the main reason why we need to spend 1 night in between.
Well, it's always good to have a little break in between because such active destinations.
Oh, yeah.
Margarita, can you tell us what it, when's the best time to visit these areas? So is there like a month we should avoid to visit these areas?
Well, the cloud forest is always wet, and it is always a good time to go there. But in the Amazonas area, we also have the dry and the wet season. The dry season coincides with the dry season in the Andes, so from late June to, I mean, from late May to the beginning of October. But the difference will be that during the dry season, the rivers are not flooded. So the streams have less water. Some of the paths will be a little less muddy. Whereas in the rainy season, the forest changes a lot because it is flooded by all the currents. So it's easier also to navigate with the paddle canoes all around. I would recommend either of those. The forest is magic to me in any of those 2 seasons.
It's part of the experience to have some
Hmm.
rain. Um, Margarita, did you say that that NK always includes the dragonflies when you
Yes.
go
Hmm.
Mashpi, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question. So there are some boats also in the Amazon in Ecuador.
Yeah.
Would you tell us a little bit about it? Would you recommend that over lodge or please tell us a
Yeah.
little bit.
The two boats that we have are called the Anaconda River Cruise and the Manatee River Cruise. Those are also boarded in Coca. you have to fly to Coca, then you take a motor canoe in Coca in the river dock, and then you navigate for about 1 hour until the place where any of these two boats will be anchored. They cannot come all the way to the city because the water is quite shallow, and there are many riverbanks, especially during the dry season. So they stay a little bit further into the river. So once you board them, it is really like a cruise experience. You will be going to shore excursions or visits in the morning and in the afternoon. The visits are pretty similar to the ones you do in the lodges, which means that you will also be provided with rubber boots to walk across the jungle, go to observation towers, visit the communities, do observation of birds, all the salt licks of the parrots. So the activities are pretty much the same. The difference is that during the time that you spend on board the boat, which is mainly during the meals or in the night, during the meals mainly, you will be navigating to reach different areas. These boats also have a 7-night itinerary, which can take you to places which are pretty very further to the east, very close to the Peruvian border. So they go very deep into the jungle, and you also will have the opportunity to see other animals that live there, like the pink dolphins, which are only found in the lakes that are in the northern part close to the border of Peru. But in terms of accommodation, they are, I would say the Anaconda is more of a 4-star property compared to La Selva Lodge or the Napo Wildlife Center. But in terms of experience of the jungle, they offer this advantage of navigating, but any of those would also be eligible for an authentic jungle experience in Ecuador.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Margarita. This was another great webinar. We really appreciate all your time and knowledge about Ecuador. We have enjoyed the trip with you through the land of 4 worlds. So, everyone, thank you so much. We're starting a great Monday all together, and we'll see you on the next webinars, the next season with Chile. So we're going to talk about Patagonia, Atacama. Please sign up if you haven't yet, and if you have not received the email yet, just contact me at my email, replying but at any of the invitations you have received before, and I will send you all the information. So have a wonderful week, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye bye. Thank you for joining me.